All right, so I want to welcome everyone here to the next webinar that we're having here with the Planning and Code Administration Department with our Neighborhood Services Division. And today we're going to go over some technical aspects of a particular section of the Property Maintenance Code. This is not a full comprehensive review of this code section. What we're just going to do is kind of cover the most common situation and give you a baseline understanding of this code section. Always consult with our office when you have any questions. Do not use this webinar as a way to move forward with anything. Always consult with our office to make sure you have the full determination by the department. Basically, we're just trying to give you a better understanding of what's going on. To ask any questions, if you have any questions as we're going along, you can either tap or click on the Q&A button that's at the bottom of the screen. There you'll be able to type in your question and we'll get to those as time allows. Today we're going to walk you through the technical aspects of overcrowding and how is that calculated. I'm actually going to be your expert for today. I'm certified as a property maintenance inspector with the International Code Council and actually have the distinction of being one of only 2 people in the state of Maryland that is certified through the ACE as a master code professional for them here in the state. The other one is Pam Harris, who's also with our department. So I'm going to share my screen here so that we can start to see about how are things calculated. All right, so I gave a presentation similar to this to the Landlord Association a little while ago, but I've added in a couple examples and some graphics for us to better maybe understand things. So first, I like to go through a couple of definitions. Let's get some baseline information so we can kind of get a better understanding of things. What is habitable space? And I'm going to read the definition so we get it correctly. Space, habitable space in a structure is for living, dining, eating, and cooking. So those are what habitable space is. And then it goes on in the definition of habitable space saying bathrooms, toilet rooms, closets, halls, storage, or utility spaces, and similar areas are not considered habitable spaces. And then for non-habitable spaces, which is defined, we go a little bit further and have this definition. And basically non-habitable spaces are bathrooms, toilet rooms, closets, halls, storage, or utility spaces, or other similar areas. So basically the habitable space code mentions what's not habitable, and then we have a non-habitable definition that clearly states it. Also, one of the baselines to understand is what is the minimum room width. The minimum room width for the property maintenance code adopted by the city of Hagerstown is 7 foot. This is except for kitchens. Kitchens do not fall underneath this minimum width requirement. That was removed from the property maintenance code in 2003. For your knowledge, the 7 room width is not something new. That's actually been part of the code since 1955 of requiring a minimum width of 7 feet in a room. And then also for the minimum ceiling height. The minimum ceiling height for habitable rooms is 7 foot. So it's pretty easy to remember. Minimum room width, 7 foot. Minimum room height, 7 foot. It's a pretty straight across the board on what the minimums are. For just some basic knowledge of room heights, ceiling heights, is that in 1955, like I mentioned before, it was 7 foot width, but in 1955 for ceiling height, it was actually 7'6". And then in 1981 to the mid 1990s, it got lowered to 7'4", and then it's been 7 foot since the mid 1990s to the present day for the 7 foot ceiling height. So it's been around for a while for what the minimum ceiling height is for habitable rooms. Now we'll get a little bit into the configuration of a unit. And there are 2 provisions that we need to talk about with what is original design, because we have a lot of walkthrough types of scenarios. There are 2 code sections that could potentially exclude rooms from being considered habitable space for a bedroom purpose. The first one that I'll go over is the access to a bedroom. So you cannot, the way the code is written is that you cannot walk through a room you cannot walk through a bedroom to get to another bedroom. You have to only be able to coming from other areas. You can't walk through a bedroom to get to another bedroom. And there's a code specifically saying that's not permitted. Now, we do have an exception to that code being that it's original design. There is also another code section that says that you cannot walk through a bedroom to get to a bathroom. So you cannot walk through that bedroom to get access to a bathroom. And I have a couple examples that will explain it a little bit clearly. Again, there is another exception to this rule that if it's original design. So we have some exceptions there because Hagerstown being an older town, that there may be situations that it was constructed that way, and that's the way that house has always been. So walking through a bedroom to get access to another bedroom or a bathroom may be permitted if it is original design. Now, how do we know if it's original design or if it's not original design? Based on construction of most of our homes in Hagerstown, a lot of our homes were built as single-family homes. If it was a single-family home or a duplex that was built and then converted into multiple units, odds are that is non-original design because it was originally built as a single-family home. Now, our records go back to about the 1930s is when I can kind of look into for what plans were inside the homes. And that covers a lot of our homes, but not all of them. And we will always work with anyone through those situations. But when you can tell that the framing doesn't match and the design is completely different, that's how we know it's not original design of a home. Now, to talk a little bit about some of the calculations, because now we kind of know, all right, we know I have a 7-foot room width in a room here. I got the 7-foot ceiling height. I know that I might or may not have some walkthrough situations. What square footages do I need? This is where things kind of boil down to everything of what is it that I need to be considered overcrowding or just the right number of occupants. This is the chart that we use to help us determine the number of occupants in a structure. First, we're going to go over living rooms and dining rooms. As you can tell, for 1 and 2 occupants, that there are no requirements for 1 and 2 people inside of a structure for living and dining space. There are bedroom requirements, but they are not living and dining requirements for 1 or 2 people. Now, you can see in the chart, though, as it goes up, that there are requirements for 3 to 5 people, and then also 6 to 8, and then ones for 9 or more. We added in the code in 2008 the section for 9 or more. We felt that we didn't have anything to address some of these structures that potentially had overcrowding issues. So when the code was last updated, which was in 2008, is when we added in that 9 or more requirement. And you can see that it's for living rooms, it's 120 square feet. For 3 to 5, it's 150. For 6 to 8, and 180 for 9 or more. For dining rooms, it's 80 square feet for 3 to 5. It's 100 square feet for 6 to 8, and it's 120 square feet for 9 or more. And then you can see in the section here, we have bedrooms where it's a completely different code section on how it's calculated. We're going to get into that a little bit later. Now, we talk about combination spaces. So spaces that are combined together. First, let's use the living and dining space example. So I'm going back to the one slide previously in front of us here. If I was going to have a combination living dining room, that I would have to have the total square footage for both of those rooms in one room. So let's take the example of 3 to 5 occupants. If I had the living room needed 120 square feet and the dining room needed 80 square feet, that means if I have a combination room, it has to be a total of 200 square feet for it to meet the qualifications of a living dining room space. And yes, you must have living and dining rooms spaces in all units in Hagerstown. So the same goes for the other ones. It'd be 250 combination for 6 to 8 and 300 square feet for 9 or more. So now let's talk about eat-in kitchens. So what is an eat-in kitchen? An eat-in kitchen is one where you actually have the square footage required for a dining room in the kitchen and on top of all of the kitchen appliances and clearances from those. And I'm going to get into those in a second, because first we need to figure out, all right, if I have a countertop inside of the space, how much countertop do I actually need? So let's talk about that for a second. All right, so I have food preparation size. That there is a code requirement that you are to have sufficient food preparation space. But that's all the code really says. It just says sufficient. It doesn't give us a specific square footage to go off of to know whether or not there is something required for square footage. There is no national code requirement out there. There's no national standard and codes for preparation of food. What we did was then is we researched this and went through these sections here. And this is a flyer that I do have. The Landlord Association does have this flyer as well if you're interested in it. And I will email to those that are attending today through the webinar to let you know what these requirements are. But basically, we have the Universal Design Guide. It says that you got to have at least a 30-inch wide countertop area for food preparation. And then ADA, or also the ANSI requirements, also say that you got to have at least a 30-inch wide section. And you can kind of see some patterns forming here. The ADA also gets into the height of the countertops, which in existing structures, if we're dealing with existing counters, we do not get into the height requirements of those countertops. But if you are making renovations to those spaces, you will be required to make sure you're compliant with those height requirements. You can't have a super high one or a super low one. So what we use as a guideline then is that you have to have at least 30 inches of width. As you can tell, that's the two standards that are out there. And then if you are 30 inches wide, you got to be at least 24 inches deep to have proper food preparation size for a countertop. So that's really not that much space when you think about it. I mean, it is less than 6 square feet to actually work for proper food size. Now, we can take in consideration too that if the countertop is not 24 inches deep, let's say the countertop is at least 21 inches deep. If it's 21 inches deep, then it's got to be at least 36 inches wide. You want to still try to maintain that overall square footage. It's just that now you've shifted things a little bit. Now, you cannot do a 30-inch deep countertop and 24 inches wide. You can't do that because we need at least 30 inches in width is what's the requirement that we're looking for proper food prep size. And it's got to be at least that 24 inches deep for that purpose. Again, if it's a narrow countertop as far as depth goes, then you need a wider workspace area. So now we know the workspace area for our kitchen. So we know that in the kitchen, we're going to obviously have our sink. And then also there'll be areas for the stove or oven and also the refrigerator. So let's take an example of an eat-in kitchen. Now, of course, I am not an architect, so you get the best drawing that I can do using paper and pencil here. And I basically took the space here. So let's say we have a kitchen. If we look there, you can see the width of the kitchen is about 10 feet. And then also the length of it or width, however you want to word those, is going to be 13 feet. And you can see that you have the kitchen configuration. It's like an L-shaped type of a kitchen. And they could all be different, but generally in that L-shaped area. Now you'll see that there's 30 inches of clearance. There is a specific code that states that you cannot count the clearance area required to safely use the kitchen appliances as part of the square footage for habitable space in those areas. It's 30 inches if it's not on an egress path, and it's 36 inches if it is on an egress path. So again, of course, we know that the egress path needs to be maintained free and clear of anything. So I have the 30 inches here for this one because it is not an egress path. You can see the opening at the bottom near the 13 that goes out to the door at the top near the 7 that will not be part of the egress path out of the building. So I'm able to say that this is a 30-inch clearance that we're looking for. I have the 10-foot as far as how my kitchen is tall, I guess we're on our example here. And then I have the 7-foot width that is from the wall all the way to the oven. So I have 70 square feet of clear area that is not being utilized for the clearances to safely operate the kitchen. And then I have that little bit of leftover area at the bottom. And for this purpose, we say it's 10 square feet that you're able to have there. So I have my 70 square feet and my 10 square feet that I can add together to get 80 square feet of dining. And as we said earlier, that the 80 square feet is what is the minimum required for 3 to 5 people to be considered an eat-in kitchen. So this example here could be an eat-in kitchen. Now, let's say we take this exact same kitchen configuration, but rather than it being 10 feet wide, we say it's 9 feet. So I take this exact same example here. Everything has remained the same, except I reduced it from 10 feet to 9 feet in the width of the room. So now in the square footage area, I only have 63 square feet. And then in that little area with all of the clearances, I have 4 square feet. So now I have 67 square feet of dining space. This is not enough dining space area to be considered an eat-in kitchen. There is not enough in that area to meet that 80 square foot requirement. But does that mean that this can never be an eat-in kitchen? That's not the case. Reconfigurations of the space could be done to potentially make this an eat-in kitchen. And let's just go to that as a nice example. So I have the exact same kitchen I just explained to you that is not an eat-in kitchen based on the configuration that it was originally. If the configuration was modified to where you took all of the kitchen appliances and put it on one wall in the kitchen, and then you have, rather than having the double sink that we had previously, you made it just a single sink. Now you have your clearance areas that you need your food prep areas that you need besides your sink that you can use to prep food. You have your refrigerator and oven. Now I have 30 inches of clearance away from the countertops and the appliances here. So now I have all of that against that wall. And now when I've done that reconfiguration, I have 79.5 square feet of dining space. Granted, it's not 80 square feet, but we do round up in that case. So I wouldn't consider that being not an eat-in kitchen, even though you got that close. We would round up and say that is 80 square feet, and you're able to have it as an eat-in kitchen. So that does exist for the possibility to reconfigure an existing space to make things an eat-in kitchen. You do not have to feel like it has to meet it just based on what you currently have. Modifications could be done to make it an eat-in kitchen. I will say, as Jason went over in a previous webinar, that a permit would be required for this type of work, that you would have to have the proper permits, most likely a building and potentially a plumbing permit for this type of work, and maybe electrical as well if you had to move electrical equipment. So there would be permits involved with that, but again, it's something that you could do to potentially make it an eat-in kitchen with a smaller example. All right, so that is one of the items that we use to calculate the occupancy of a structure. So we use a living and dining space. The other is bedrooms. And that is the only 3 things that we consider when considering how many people can occupy a space. No matter if you have multiple bathrooms and that adds more square footage to the space, or you have habitable basement areas, that again does not get calculated into the space. It could potentially be added into living and dining space, or living space and dining space maybe, but generally speaking, the 3 areas that we look at to calculate the occupancy is going to be from the kitchen, the dining, and the bedroom. So now on to the bedrooms. So bedroom calculations is that for one person, you have to have 70 square feet. So that's at least a 7-foot wide room by at least 10 foot deep. For 2 people, you need 100 square feet. And for 3 people, 150 square feet. And the code goes up from there where it's 50 square feet for each person thereafter. So for 4 people, it would be 200 square feet, 5 people, 250, and so on. So I think you kind of catch the drift on how we could do those calculations. Now, the one thing that we always want to make clear is that the code does not differentiate on the size of the occupant, meaning whether or not it's an infant, it's a child, or it's an adult, it still requires the same amount of square footage. We get those comments frequently that say, well, that's just a baby's room, that it doesn't need to meet all those requirements. The code does not permit that. It's got to be at least 70 square feet for it to be considered a bedroom for one person. If it's less than 70 square feet, then that does not meet the code requirement for a bedroom. Now, I'm going to kind of take you through a couple examples here. From this example here, you can see this is kind of like a typical a building that we have in Hagerstown. I would say like a duplex that you would have, you know, your living, dining, and kitchen space on the first floor. And then you would have typically 3 bedrooms and a bathroom on a second floor. And from the square footages that I've listed here for each room, you can see that the living room would be 156 square feet. The dining room would be 90 square feet. Bedroom 1, which is at the bottom of your screen, would be 180 square feet, which would be good for 2 people. Bedroom 2 would be 72 square feet, so just enough for it to be for 1 person. And bedroom 3 would be 130 square feet, which would be good for 2 people. So 5 people can occupy this space because our bedroom sizes met the requirements, and also our living and dining. Because remember, for at least 5 people, we needed 120 square feet of living space, and we needed 80 square feet of dining. So we met all of the requirements for this to be a 5-person occupancy of a apartment building here in Hagerstown. Now, I'm going to take this exact same example and I'm going to shorten each of the rooms 1 foot. So I'm going to take that we have in our living room that we see on our left of our screen right now is 12 feet. I'm going to reduce that to 11. The dining room, reduce it to 8, and the kitchen, reduce it to 9. So I took those exact same things and now I went to the next example here, which is still, I just took that building and I just shrunk it by a couple feet. So now our living room is 143 square feet. And our dining room is 80 square feet. So based on those right now, we can say, oh, we could have up to 5 people because I have the 120 for the living and I have the 80 for the dining. But then we have to take in consideration the bedrooms as well. So that transferred over on the floors on the first floor to the second floor as well because everything's being reduced a foot. So now bedroom 1 is for 88 square feet, which is only big enough for 1 person. Bedroom 2 is now 64 square feet. That is not big enough for it to be a bedroom for 1 person. So that's not a bedroom anymore. And then now bedroom 3 is for 113 square feet. So now 3 people can occupy this building, and meaning with the requirements for the bedrooms. So we have to take both into consideration here. We can't just consider if I have a living room or dining room that's large enough, now all of my bedrooms are perfectly fine. No, we take into consideration the bedrooms as well. So it is factoring in all of the parameters here before we determine the number of occupants for a structure. So those are some simple examples. Your rooms may be similar to those types of square footages, but just kind of give you some basic examples of how things can change from structure to structure. Just as simple as just 1 foot in dimension changing could completely change the number of occupants inside of your structure. Let's take a look at some of our multifamily buildings that we have. A lot of our multifamily buildings, they are 1 floor that have multiple units in them. And this is just a simple example where it's essentially 2 rooms and a kitchen and a bathroom and maybe has the closet with it. So room 1 is 130 square feet. Room 2 is 70 square feet. So then how many people can actually occupy this structure? Well, it's only 2. And the reason being is that I'm identifying these as rooms is that we don't generally classify things as a bedroom inside of a multi-unit structure. We will when asked, but generally speaking, we'll just call them as rooms when we're going through these walk-through spaces. Bedroom or room 1 would have to be considered the bedroom. And that goes through a number of things. And you can see that's an entry door at the bottom of the screen there. And you're thinking, why would anyone want to enter into their bedroom? They will not set that up that way. They're going to put their bedroom in room number 2. We know that's the case, but particularly speaking by code purposes, if we're calculating the space, room 1 has to be the bedroom because I cannot walk through a bedroom to get to a bathroom. So if room 2 was a bedroom, if I was in the kitchen or in room 1, I would have to walk through that bedroom as room number 2 to get to that bathroom, no matter where I started from. So room 2 cannot be a bedroom. Same thing is I can't walk through a bedroom to get to another bedroom. Again, if I was in the kitchen and room 2 was a bedroom, and I need to get to room 1, which is a bedroom, I'd have to walk through room 2 to get to room 1. I've now walked through a bedroom to get to another bedroom. so not permitted by code. Now you can say, well, you had to walk through the bedroom to get to the other spaces when you entered in, when your first room was a bedroom. You are correct that you do have to walk through that bedroom, but there is no code saying that they cannot enter in to a bedroom when they're entering into the unit. It only says you cannot walk through the bedroom to get to a bathroom, or walk through a bedroom to get to another bedroom. So that's why this is only for 2 people, and then the living room or dining room would be considered room number 2 for our purposes of today. Now let's take another multifamily structure. This time we're coming in off the hallway from the left here, and then we have 2 rooms, and we have a bathroom and a kitchen. So room 1 has 156 square feet, and room 2 is 80 square feet. Looking at those, I could say, room 1, I could potentially get, let's even say 3 people in that one, and room 2, I could get 1 person. So I have 3 people here, but doing the calculations with me, I could tell I'm wrong on the slide. But we're saying, oh, that could potentially be, larger. Well, I do have the hallway. I don't have to walk through one of those rooms to get to anything else. So is that the case? Well, not exactly, because you remember that when I have a room needing 3 people, I need living and dining space. So I need to meet the requirements for the living and dining, which, if we recall, for 3 people requires 120 square feet for living and 80 square feet for dining. Already, if I was looking at those calculations, I don't have enough to even meet one of those. So only could it be big enough for 2 people in this. Even though room 1 could be considered for 3 people, I don't have enough square footage to get me the space needed for living and dining, and either individually or combined together. So I would only say that 2 people could occupy this structure. Even though it kind of has a configuration of 2 bedrooms, it is not. It is a 1 bedroom with another room. So let's take another example for calculating a multifamily. Now I have where I'm entering in off, let's say, the kitchen area at the top of the screen, and I can walk through the spaces here. And I have room 1 at the bottom here. That's a 10 by 10, which is 100 square feet. And room 2 is 150 square feet. How many people can occupy this? Well, as we kind of went through the example 2 slides ago, we know that we can not walk through a bedroom to get to a bathroom or another bedroom. So if room 2 is anything other than a living or dining space, it is now in violation of that code. So you cannot walk through that space anymore to be considered a bedroom in that first one there, or bedroom, room number 2 cannot be considered a bedroom. And again, we need to meet the living and dining requirements to be 3 people or more. So again, I don't have enough square footage for these examples to work other than 2 people. Now, granted, your other ones might be different than this, and might be like, well, I have another room in between, and everything always varies from case to case, structure to structure. So certainly, your situation may be different than what I'm explaining to you here. So again, like going over those couple calculations that we had here, you can see from that chart. And then at the bottom, I kind of threw in just a couple of the bedroom ones, just kind of get you a better understanding of how the calculations are done for the number of people in there. And like I said, for 1 and 2 occupants, we do not have a living and dining requirement, but there is the requirement for bedroom sizes. So for 1 person, you would need at least 70 square feet. And for 2 people, you would need at least 100 square feet for that to be at least the minimum square footage required for a bedroom if you had no living and dining space. Now you might be thinking, oh, 1 and 2 bedroom, or 1 to 2 people, that's my efficiency. That's what I have. Well, if it's an efficiency apartment, there are certain minimum requirements for an efficiency. That if it's 1 person, you got to have at least 150 square feet. And again, there's calculations with those that we cannot count the bathroom for that square footage, and we cannot count the space for the kitchen and the food prep area and that space in front of the kitchen counters. So it's 150 square feet, not including those areas, no closets, nothing along those lines. Then for 2 people, needs to be 200 square feet, and for 3 people, needs to be 320 square feet. The maximum occupancy for any efficiency is 3 people. Again, it does not matter the size of the occupant. The max is 3 people for an efficiency. Sorry, I'm trying to follow along here with on my slides here as well. So we could have some potential questions here that you all may have, and I will stop some of my screen share here in a second to see if there's any questions that will potentially come in. And I'll leave this up here for anyone that might be watching later to want to send us an email. But there could be potential questions that could come up that that you might have particular to your situation. Please do not hesitate to send us an email and we can answer that question. And if you wanted us to come out to calculate the square footage for a place, I'm more than happy to help you with something like that. So what are a couple of the common requirements that we may have? Or a couple of questions that we typically might get for some of these ones. Like I just alluded to a minute ago, that, will we come out and calculate, your occupant load for your structure? We most certainly will. We will not do it during a rental inspection, but if requested, we will. But generally, we're going in, kind of determine the number of bedrooms at the place, but we are not determining the occupant load for the structure. That will be something that we'll do at a later time, because honestly, it takes a lot of time to calculate the occupant load of a structure. It's a lot of measuring to figure out the occupancy of that structure. The question sometimes that we get is, how do we enforce overcrowding? Of places or have heard of places that there are multiple families living in, and why is the city, allowing that to happen? That could be something that we commonly get. We don't go around and knock on the doors to determine the number of people that are occupying the structure. If we get a call, a complaint from someone that says that, hey, there's a lot of people living in this building, we will investigate in them. The challenge being is that we have to get inside the structure. We can't just do it on that I see a lot of people going in and out of the structure. Determining the number of people that are sleeping at a property can be very challenging to do. We can go in, we'll measure it, we'll determine the occupant load, and then as the landlord of a structure, you can investigate, how many people actually signed the lease, and then how many people are actually staying at the property, because you might sign a lease with someone, and then they're saying, well, my sister and her kid are staying with me for a while, and that could create that overcrowding issue inside the structure. So it's very difficult for us to prove overcrowding, but we can certainly calculate on what the occupant load is and assist with any of those types of situations. Now, one of the common things is that, I advertise this as a 3-bedroom apartment, and I rent it out to the tenants as a 3-bedroom apartment. But now the tenant has called our office, called the city of Hagerstown, and has said, hey, I rented this as a 3-bedroom, but I don't think it is. Can you come out and take a look at it? We will come out and take a look at the structure to determine it. And at times we found where it might have always been called a 3-bedroom unit. It doesn't meet the square footage requirements that we've gone over. So that could be a situation where you might get yourself into a legal snafu, where you advertise it as one way, leased it as one way, and then we came in and made a determination that that is not the number of bedrooms that it actually is permitted by code. So certainly that's something that you want to make sure that you can work with our office to get the proper determination of number of bedrooms in a structure. You might be thinking, well, Section 8 determined how many bedrooms it is. Section 8 does do things as far as the number of bedrooms in a structure, and will create the stipends based on the number of bedrooms there are. But what you might not know is that Section 8, the Housing Authority, relies on the city's determination of number of bedrooms for those classifications of 1, 2, or 3-bedroom places. We get common calls from the Housing Authority asking us, how many bedrooms did you all classify this structure? And we'll let them know what they are based on our previous reports, and we'll give that to them. If it's one that we've never inspected, then we'll go out and actually make that determination for them to let them know how many bedrooms it is. So the Housing Authority might provide stipends for the number of bedrooms, but the city of Hagerstown determines the number of legal bedrooms in a structure. It's a very common question that we get, and that's why the inspectors, when they're doing their inspection, will determine how many bedrooms a structure is. They will not do the occupant load calculation so that we can provide this to the Housing Authority very quickly. If an occupant load calculation is needed, that's something, like I said, takes a lot of time and can require more time invested into that inspection. When we're going back to back, it just doesn't work out sometimes. I'm not seeing any questions coming in right now, which is perfectly fine. And that just means I covered everything. No, I'm just kidding. I know that there's probably questions and you might have things for your particular case that you just might not want to bring up today. Certainly do not hesitate to contact our office at any time to ask any clarifications on how occupant loads are calculated. You know, we always try to recognize that Hagerstown is a very unique town, and we realize that. And we try to take that in consideration with our codes to make sure that we can accommodate existing structures. And some of the things I didn't go into were changes that we've made as we've done inspections of these existing homes to make modifications to that code to be more accommodating for our structures in Hagerstown. We didn't make it more restrictive. We loosened those restrictions to do those. But we've been doing this for quite some time, and we feel like that there has been a minimum standard established for occupant loads. Now, as I mentioned, you can always email us at codecompliance@hagerstownmd.org if you have any specific questions related to your property, and do not hesitate to ask us those questions. I want to thank everyone for being a part of today's webinar. Next week, we'll be going over sections that will be on what can you do online, where we'll actually be covering things of all the different things you can do online. One of the things that this pandemic has done for everything, especially for us here in our department, is made things more available online to you as our customers. So we're going to be covering all of those different things that you might not even know that you could do online now, that we've recently implemented, and some things that have been around for quite some time and just no one utilizes. As always, you can follow us on any of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, where you can search for PCAD Hagerstown, and that's PCAD Hagerstown, and you can find us there and follow us. And again, I want to thank everyone for being part of today's webinar. You know, again, sign up for our next one. And again, I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.